Lee Tae-min floated awkwardly in the zero-gravity laboratory, trying not to bump into the delicate equipment around him. His arms moved too fast, his legs kicked too hard, and every time he tried to stop himself, he just spun in circles. The other students in his advanced xenobiology class moved like they were born in space. They probably were. "Careful, human," said a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Taemin turned to see his roommate, Veltar, floating nearby. Veltar looked like a walking crystal sculpture, all sharp edges and rainbow colors. When he spoke, different parts of his body rang like bells. "The equipment here costs more than your entire planet's yearly income." Taemin wanted to argue, but he was too busy trying not to crash into a microscope that looked like it was made of pure light. "Sorry," he said, grabbing onto a wall handle. "I'm still getting used to this." Professor Yildoran entered the lab, her 8 purple tentacles moving in perfect harmony as she glided through the space. Each tentacle held a different tool or data pad. Her large, round eyes looked at each student before settling on Taemin. "Today, we will collect tissue samples from various species," she announced. Her voice came from a translator device since her natural speech was just clicking sounds. "This will help you understand the basic building blocks of life across the galaxy." Taemin looked around at his classmates. There was Crixela, who looked like a giant praying mantis with 4 arms and compound eyes that sparkled like jewels. Next to her floated Nethum, who wasn't solid at all but looked like colored gas in the shape of a person. Zephan had bright blue feathers and a sharp beak, with wings folded against his back. There were 8 other students from species Taemin couldn't even pronounce the names of. He was the only human in the class. Actually, he was one of only 5 humans on the entire station. Earth had just joined the Galactic Council last year, and they were still figuring out if humans could fit in with the rest of the galaxy. "Each of you will take a small sample from your own tissue," Professor Yildoran continued. "The molecular scalpels are very sharp. They can cut through almost anything, so be very careful." She handed out the scalpels. They looked like thin silver, pens with a blue glow at the tip. Taemin had never seen anything like them, but they seemed simple enough to use. "Just a tiny scrape on your arm or hand," the professor said. "We only need a few cells." Taemin watched the other students. Veltar carefully touched the scalpel to one of his crystal facets, and a tiny piece chipped off with a musical sound. Crixela used one of her 4 hands to hold the scalpel, while another hand held her arm steady, taking a sample from her green exoskeleton. Zephan plucked a single feather and used the scalpel to scrape some cells from its base. When it was Taemin's turn, he tried to be just as careful. He held the scalpel like a pen and gently touched it to the back of his left hand. But the tool was sharper than he expected. Much sharper. Instead of a tiny scrape, it cut deep into his skin. Blood immediately started flowing from the cut. Bright red blood that looked alien compared to the blue, green, and silver fluids the other students had collected. The cut was about 2 inches, long and deep enough that Taemin could see the white of his bone. "Oh no," he said, more annoyed than worried. "I cut myself." The reaction from his classmates was immediate and terrifying. Crixela's compound eyes went wide, and she made a high-pitched, screeching sound. Veltar's crystal body started ringing like alarm bells. Zephan's feathers stood up all over his body, and he started making rapid clicking noises. Nethum's gaseous form turned from blue to bright red. "Medical emergency!" Professor Yildoran shouted, all 8 of her tentacles waving frantically. "Student down! Fatal injury in Lab 7! "Fatal." Taemin looked at his hand. Yes, it was bleeding quite a bit, and yes, it hurt. But fatal seemed like an overreaction. "It's just a cut." "Just a cut?" Veltar's voice was so high-pitched that the translator had trouble keeping up. "You're bleeding everywhere. Your life fluid is pouring out." "That wound goes to the bone," Crixela screeched. "How are you still conscious?" Emergency lights started flashing in the lab. An alarm made loud beeping sounds. Through the intercom, a voice announced, "Medical team to Lab 7. Critical injury. Species, human." Taemin looked around at his panicking classmates. "Guys, seriously, I'm fine." He pressed his other hand against the cut to slow the bleeding. "It's not that bad." Not that bad? Netham's gaseous form was now pulsing between red and orange. Any one of us would be dead already. That cut would kill a Silithan instantly. A Zephyrian would bleed out in seconds. Professor Yildoran was frantically pressing buttons on her data pad. "The medical team is 3 minutes away. Try to stay awake, human. Don't close your eyes." "I'm not going to close my eyes," Taemin said. "I'm fine, really." But nobody was listening to him. Veltar was making sounds like a broken wind chime. Crixla was rocking back and forth on her 4 legs. Zephan had his wings spread wide and was making distress calls that hurt Taemin's ears. The medical team arrived in full emergency gear. They were led by Dr. Kethron, a tall, thin alien with gray skin and 6 arms. Each arm held a different medical device that Taemin had never seen before. "Where is the injured student?" Dr. Kethron asked, looking around the lab. "Here," Taemin said, raising his bloody hand. Dr. Kethron stared at him. "You're conscious." "Yes." "And talking." "Obviously. But you've lost at least 50 milliliters of blood. That should have put you in shock." Taemin looked at his hand. The bleeding had already slowed down quite a bit. "I've had worse cuts than this. Last month I fell off my bike and scraped up my entire leg." The doctor's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "You survived losing blood from your entire leg?" It wasn't that much blood. Dr. Kethron began scanning Taemin with several devices at once. The readings seemed to confuse him more. "Your heart rate is elevated but stable. Blood pressure is within normal range. No signs of shock or organ failure." He paused. "This is impossible." "Can I just get a bandage?" Taemin asked. "I have homework to finish." The entire medical team stared at him. Professor Yildoran's tentacles had stopped waving. All the other students were completely silent except for Veltar, who was still making quiet chiming sounds. "A bandage," Dr. Kethron repeated slowly. "Yeah. You know, something to cover the cut so it doesn't get infected." The doctor looked at his medical scanners again, then at Taemin, then back at his scanners. I'll get you a bandage." While the medical team worked on cleaning and covering his cut, Taemin noticed his classmates whispering to each other in their various languages. The universal translator couldn't keep up with all of them talking at once, but he caught words like impossible, unnatural, and how is he alive? After the medical team left, Professor Yildoran dismissed the class early. As the students filed out, they kept looking back at Taemin like he was some kind of strange creature they'd never seen before, which he supposed he was. Veltar floated beside him as they left the lab. "Taemin," he said quietly, his crystal body making soft, musical sounds. "In my culture, rapid healing is considered a sign of great power, or great danger." "It's not rapid healing," Taemin said. "It's just normal healing. Give it a few days and you won't even be able to see where I cut myself." Veltar's body went completely silent. "A few days?" "Yeah, maybe a week for the scar to fade completely." His roommate stared at him for a long moment. Then he said something in his own language that the translator couldn't handle before floating away very quickly. Taemin looked down at his bandaged hand. Maybe coming to Galactic University was going to be more complicated than he thought. The next morning, Taemin woke up to find a small crowd outside his dorm room. Through the door's window, he could see Veltar, Crixla, Zephan, and several other students from his xenobiology class. They were all standing very quietly, like people do at funerals. He opened the door. "Good morning." All of them jumped back. Veltar made a sound like breaking glass. Crixla's 4 arms all moved to cover her compound eyes. Zephan's feathers stood straight up. "You're alive," Netham said. His gaseous form was a confused mix of blue and yellow colors. "Well, yes," Taemin said. "Why wouldn't I be?" "The wound," Crixla whispered. "Yesterday. The terrible wound." Taemin looked at his hand. He had taken the bandage off that morning to check how it was healing. The cut was already closed, just a thin, red line where the molecular scalpel had sliced him. "Oh, this? It's fine. Look." He held up his hand. The aliens all stared at it in complete silence. "That's impossible," Zephon said finally. "Yesterday you were bleeding to death. Today there's just a line." "I wasn't bleeding to death," Taemin said. "It was just a cut. Just a cut that went to the bone." Veltar's translator buzzed with static. "A cut that would have killed any of us." Before Taemin could explain, Kim So-ra appeared at the end of the hallway. She was the only other human in the dorm building, a medical student who had arrived on the same transport as Taemin. She took one look at the group of aliens clustered around his door and sighed. "Let me guess," she said in Korean, then switched to Galactic Standard. "They think you should be dead," something like that, Taemin replied. So-ra looked at the aliens, all of whom were staring at both humans now. "Can I see the cut?" Taemin showed her his hand. She examined it carefully, touching the healing skin. "Nice clean cut, healing well, should be completely gone in a few more days." This caused another round of shocked sounds from the aliens. "Excuse?" "Me," Crixla said, her voice very small. "Did you say it will be completely gone?" "Of course," So-ra said. "Human skin regenerates pretty quickly, especially for minor injuries like this." "Minor?" Netham's form turned bright orange. "We watched him nearly die yesterday." So-ra looked confused. She glanced at Taemin, who shrugged. "They've been acting like this since it happened," he said. "Oh," So-ra said, understanding dawning on her face. "Oh no. You don't know, do you?" "Know what?" Veltar asked. So-ra looked around at all the alien faces staring at her. "How fragile you all are compared to us." She gestured for them to follow her to the common area, where there were enough seats for everyone. The aliens arranged themselves in a semicircle, all focused on her like she was about to reveal the secrets of the universe. "Let me explain how human healing works," So-ra began. "When we get cut, our blood has these things called platelets. They stick together to form clots that stop the bleeding. Then white blood cells come to fight infection, and new skin cells grow to close the wound." "How long does this take?" Zephon asked, "for a cut like Taemin's?" "The bleeding stops in a few minutes. The wound closes in a day or two, complete healing in about a week." Crixla's compound eyes were very wide. "A week? Complete healing in a week?" "For minor cuts, yes. Broken bones take 6 to 8 weeks. Major injuries can take months." "Months," Veltar repeated. His crystal body was making very quiet sounds. "You survive for months with major injuries?" "Well, yes. As long as we get medical care." Netham's gaseous form was cycling through colors rapidly. "This explains so much. No wonder your species survived long enough to reach space." "What do you mean?" Taemin asked. "If any of us got a cut like yours yesterday, we would die," Zephon explained. "My people, the Zephyrians, we have very thin blood. A cut that size would mean bleeding to death in minutes. Silithans like me don't heal at all," Veltar added. "If part of our crystal structure breaks, it stays broken forever. That's why we're so careful." "The Crixari have healing, but it takes years," Crixla said. "And only for very small injuries. Anything bigger than a tiny chip in our exoskeleton is permanent damage." So-ra was starting to look as shocked as they did. "You mean none of you can heal from injuries?" "Some species can," Netham said, "but not like humans. The fastest healing species in known space are the Deltarians. They can close small wounds in about 30 days. 30 days? Taemin looked at his hand again. "For something this size?" That would be considered miraculous healing speed, Zephon said. And you did it in one day? Sora sat down heavily. No wonder the medical team freaked out yesterday. Dr. Kethron spent 3 hours reviewing the scans, Veltar said. He kept saying the readings had to be wrong. What kind of world did you come from? Crixla asked quietly. What kind of place creates beings who heal so fast? Tamian and Sora looked at each other. Earth is challenging, Sora said finally. Challenging how? Netham asked. Well, Tamian began, there are predators everywhere. Animals that want to eat you, plants that are poisonous, weather that can kill you, earthquakes, floods, fires, diseases. He trailed off as he noticed the aliens were all staring at him in horror. Your world tried to kill you constantly? Zephon's voice was very high. I guess you could put it that way, Sora said. But that's why we evolved to be tough. If we couldn't heal fast and survive injuries, our species would have died out millions of years ago. Evolution, Crixla whispered. Natural selection for survival traits. That's terrifying, Veltar said. And amazing. Word spread quickly through the station. By dinner time, Tamian noticed aliens staring at him in the cafeteria. Some looked curious. Others looked afraid. A few looked like they were taking notes. He sat with Sora and 2 other humans, Park Jiho from the engineering program and Young Subin from geology. The 3 other humans looked normal to him, but he was starting to realize that normal for humans was apparently impossible for everyone else. I heard about yesterday, Jiho said. The whole engineering department is talking about it. About a small cut? Tamian asked. About a human surviving a fatal injury and healing overnight, Subin corrected. Professor Yildoran sent a report to the medical department. They're requesting copies of all human medical files. Why? Because they're trying to figure out if we're actually biological or if we're some kind of advanced synthetic beings, Sora said. I heard Dr. Kethron talking to his colleagues. They can't believe organic life could be this resilient. Across the cafeteria, Tamian could see his classmates sitting together, all of them looking in his direction. Veltar caught his eye and waved hesitantly. Tamian waved back. They're scared of us, Jiho observed. Can you blame them? Subin asked. If I met someone who could survive things that would kill me instantly, I'd be scared too. But we're not dangerous, Tamian said. Aren't we? Sora asked quietly. Think about it. We come from a world so hostile that we evolved to be nearly indestructible by galactic standards. We heal from injuries that would kill them. We're stronger, faster, and tougher than probably every species on this station. We're also friendly, Tamian pointed out. They don't know that yet. After dinner, Tamian found Veltar waiting outside his dorm room. His crystal roommate was making very quiet. Musical sounds, which Tamian had learned, meant he was nervous. I wanted to apologize, Veltar said, for how I acted today and yesterday. You don't need to apologize. I understand why you were shocked. Do you? Because I'm not sure I understand anything anymore. Veltar's body made a sound like distant thunder. I've been researching your species since yesterday. Did you know that your planet is classified as a Class 12 death world? What does that mean? It means that conditions on your planet are so hostile that they should prevent the evolution of intelligent life. Most species evolve on Class 3 or 4 worlds. The most extreme inhabited world we knew of before Earth was Class 8. Tamian thought about this. So Earth is worse than anywhere else in the galaxy? Much worse. And somehow you not only survived, you thrived. You built a civilization, you reached space, and now you're here, healing from wounds that would kill us like it's nothing special. Veltar was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I think I understand why some species are afraid of humans. You're living proof that there are things in the universe we never imagined possible. We're just people, Veltar. No, his roommate said, softly. You're something much more extraordinary than that, and I think it's going to take the rest of the galaxy a while to figure out what that means. A week after the lab incident, Taemin's hand looked completely normal. The thin red line had faded to nothing, leaving perfect, unmarked skin. This caused another wave of shocked stares from his classmates when he showed up to xenobiology without any trace of his injury. Zephan approached him before class started. The blue-feathered alien was carrying a datapad and had the intense look of someone conducting scientific research. Taemin, Zephan said, would you be willing to participate in some experiments? What kind of experiments? Nothing dangerous. Just documentation. We want to understand human healing better, for science. Taemin looked around. Crixela was nearby, also holding a datapad. Veltar was hovering close, his crystal body making curious musical sounds. Even Netham had drifted over, his gaseous form a bright, interested blue. What would these experiments involve? Taemin asked carefully. Small controlled injuries, Zephan said quickly. Very small, and we would monitor your healing process. Maybe take some scans, record the timeline. You want to hurt me to watch me heal? For science, Crixela added enthusiastically. Think of what we could learn. Before Taemin could answer, news came from the engineering section that changed everything. Park Ji-ho had been working on a plasma conduit repair when something went wrong. There had been an explosion. The emergency alert went out across the entire station. Engineering student critically injured. All medical personnel report immediately. Taemin and his classmates rushed to the medical bay along with half the station. Through the windows, they could see Ji-ho lying on an examination table, conscious and talking to the doctors. His clothes were burned, and there were obvious burn marks on his arms and face. Dr. Kethron was running scans with all 6 of his hands while 2 other doctors worked around him. The readings on the medical displays made no sense to most observers, but the doctors looked increasingly confused. How is he conscious? One doctor asked. 3rd-degree burns should have put him in shock, another said. The plasma temperature was over 3,000 degrees, Dr. Kethron muttered. This should have vaporized him. Through the intercom, they could hear Ji-ho talking. It wasn't that bad. The containment field protected me from most of it. I just got splashed a little when the conduit blew. A little? Dr. Kethron's voice went up several octaves. You have burns covering 15% of your body? Yeah, it stings. Do you have anything for pain relief? Taemin felt his classmates staring at him. Is this normal for humans too? Veltar whispered. Ji-ho's always been tough, Taemin said. But yeah, humans can survive burns like that if they get medical care. Survive? Crixela's compound eyes were very wide. He's asking for pain medication like he has a headache. Dr. Kethron came out of the medical bay looking like he'd seen a ghost. The human will recover, he announced to the crowd. Complete healing expected in 2 to 3 weeks. 2 to 3 weeks? Zephan squawked. For burns that severe? Human. Skin regenerates at an unprecedented rate, the doctor said. We're having to completely revise our understanding of biological healing capabilities. That night, the alien students gathered in the common area with their data pads and research materials. They had been collecting information about humans for a week, and their findings were disturbing. Look at this, Crixela said, showing her notes to the group. Humans can lose up to 40% of their blood and still survive with medical care. 40%? Netham's form turned orange with shock. Any of us would be dead at 5% blood loss. It gets worse, Zephan added. They can survive with only 1 kidney, 1 lung, half a liver, and no spleen. Their organs are redundant. Redundant? Veltar asked. They have backup systems built in, Zephan explained. If one organ fails, others can compensate. Crixela pulled up more data. They can survive for days without water, weeks without food. Their bones are hollow but stronger than Krixari battle armor. Their muscles can function at peak capacity even when damaged. I've been studying their pain tolerance, Netham said. Yesterday, I watched Young Soo-bin continue working on her geology project with a broken finger. She just taped it to another finger and kept going. A broken bone? Veltar's crystal structure chimed in distress. And she kept working? She said it was annoying, but not serious enough to stop her homework. The aliens sat in silence processing this information. Finally, Zephon spoke. What kind of evolutionary pressure creates beings like this? Professor Yildoran had been wondering the same thing. She floated in her office, reviewing Earth's classification files with growing alarm. When the Galactic Council had first received humanity's application for membership, most species had been excited to meet a new intelligent race. The preliminary surveys had been encouraging. Humans seemed friendly, curious, and eager to learn. What the surveys hadn't fully explained was exactly what kind of world had produced them. Earth's file was marked with warning symbols that Professor Yildoran had never seen used together before. Extreme weather systems, tectonic instability, aggressive predator species, toxic plant life, volcanic activity, radiation exposure from their star, disease organisms that evolved specifically to attack intelligent life. And somehow, impossibly, humans had not just survived on this world. They had dominated it. Computer, she said to her office AI, show me the survival rates for other species on Class 12 worlds. No other intelligent species have evolved on Class 12 worlds, the computer replied. Survival simulations suggest that most galactic species would have a life expectancy of less than 1 day on such planets. 1 day? That is optimistic. Most species would not survive the first few hours. Professor Yildoran stared at the data. Humans had lived on their death world for millions of years. They had built cities, developed technology, created art and music and literature, all while constantly facing threats that would exterminate any other known species. No wonder they healed so fast. No wonder they could survive injuries that killed everyone else. They had evolved in hell, and hell had made them into something that shouldn't exist. The next day in class, the alien students couldn't concentrate on their regular lessons. They kept staring at Tae-min, taking notes on everything he did, when he accidentally bumped his elbow on a lab table. They all jumped to attention, waiting to see if he would react to what would be significant pain for them. He just rubbed his elbow and continued working. Does anything actually hurt humans? Krixla asked during a break. Of course things hurt us, Tae-min said. We feel pain just like everyone else. But you don't react to it the same way, Veltar observed. I guess we're used to it. On Earth, you learned to deal with pain early. If you stopped every time something hurt, you'd never get anything done. This launched another round of note-taking from his classmates. What's the worst injury you've ever had? Zephon asked. Tae-min thought about it. Probably when I broke my leg playing soccer in high school. Or maybe when I got food poisoning from bad seafood. Food poisoning? Netham's form turned red. You ate toxic food? Not on purpose. Sometimes food goes bad. And you survived? It was awful for a few days, but yeah, my body fought off the bacteria. Your body fought off toxins that would kill us, Krixla said slowly. By itself, without medical intervention. Well, I did take some medicine, and I stayed hydrated. The aliens exchanged looks. Veltar's crystal body was making sounds like a symphony, which Tae-min had learned meant he was thinking very hard. Tae-min, Veltar said finally, I think we need to understand something important. You keep saying these things are normal for humans, but nothing about humans is normal by galactic standards. What do you mean? You're from a world that should have killed your species before it could evolve intelligence, but instead, it made you into something that can survive anything. You heal impossibly fast, you're stronger than you should be, and you treat fatal injuries like minor inconveniences. Zephon nodded. In our cultures, beings with your capabilities would be considered gods or demons. You're living myths. We're just people, Taemin said again. No, Crixla said quietly. You're survivors, the ultimate survivors. And I think the galaxy has no idea what that means yet. Professor Yildoran was having the same realization. She had spent the day reviewing medical files for all 5 human students on the station. The data was consistent and terrifying. These weren't just tough individuals. This was what humans were like as a species. She began composing a message. To the Galactic Council, they needed to know what they had invited into their civilization, not because humans were dangerous, but because they represented something the galaxy had never encountered before, a species that evolution had made nearly indestructible. The question was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready to accept that. Some species could be so far beyond normal that they redefined what was possible for biological life. Looking at her data, Professor Yildoran suspected the answer was no. 2 weeks after the lab incident, the atmosphere on the station had changed. Some aliens avoided the humans entirely, crossing to the other side of hallways when they saw them coming. Others, like Crixla, followed them around with data pads, documenting everything they did. The humans had become living experiments. Taemin noticed that Veltar had been avoiding him. His crystal roommate came back to their room late at night and left early in the morning. When they did cross paths, Veltar's body made quiet, nervous sounds instead of his usual cheerful chimes. Finally, Taemin cornered him after class. Veltar, what's wrong? Are you angry with me? Veltar's crystal structure went completely silent for a moment. Then he made a sound like wind through broken glass. I'm not angry. I'm frightened. Of me? Of what you represent. Veltar turned away, his faceted body reflecting the hallway lights in rainbow patterns. In Silithan culture, we have legends about beings who cannot die. They're not good legends, Taemin. They're warnings. I can die, Taemin said quietly. I'm not immortal. Can you? Because everything I've learned about humans suggests otherwise. You survive things that kill us instantly. You heal from wounds we can't imagine surviving. You come from a world that should have been impossible to live on. Veltar faced him again. What if you're not the friendly species you appear to be? What if you're something else entirely? Before Taemin could answer, an emergency alarm started blaring throughout the station. The announcement came over the intercom. All students report to emergency stations. Cave in at the Geological Survey Site. Search and rescue operations beginning immediately. Taemin and Veltar rushed to the transport bay along with the other students. Professor Yildoran was coordinating the rescue effort, her 8 tentacles moving rapidly across multiple control panels. What happened? Crixla asked as she arrived with Zephon. Equipment failure during the geological survey of the moon's crystal caves, Professor Yildoran explained. The support structures collapsed. We have 6 students trapped inside, including... She checked her list. Jung Subin from Earth. The rescue teams were already suiting up, but Professor Yildoran looked worried. The cave system is unstable. We can only send in small teams with minimal equipment. It took 4 hours to reach the trapped students. When the rescue team finally broke through the debris, they found 5 alien students clustered together in a small air pocket, all of them injured and in shock. Subin was 20 feet away, buried under a pile of rocks that should have crushed her. The rescue team leader, a tall Vrathan with 4 arms, activated his communicator. We need medical teams immediately. 5 students with critical injuries and... He paused, staring at Subin. There's a human here who should be dead but is asking if we brought any water. Subin was conscious and alert when they pulled the rocks off her. Her left arm was clearly broken, hanging at an odd angle. There was blood on her face from several cuts, and her leg was trapped under a boulder that took 3 Vrathan to move. How long have you been conscious? The rescue team leader asked. The whole time, Subin replied. I kept talking to the others. to keep them awake. Is everyone okay? The rescue leader looked at his scanner readings, then at Subin, then back at his scanner. You have 3 broken ribs, a fractured arm, possible internal bleeding, and crush injuries to your leg. How are you talking? It hurts, but I'm okay. The others are hurt worse than me. She was right. The alien students had gone into shock from injuries that Subin would consider minor. What would have been fatal to them was merely painful to her. When they brought the students back to the medical bay, Dr. Kethran ran his scans on Subin and found exactly what the rescue scanner had indicated. Injuries that should have killed her were healing already. The broken ribs are already beginning to mend, he announced to his medical team. The internal bleeding has stopped on its own. The crush injuries show signs of rapid tissue repair. How long for full recovery? One of his assistants asked. For a human, based on what we've learned about their healing capabilities, 6 to 8 weeks for the broken bones. The rest should heal in days. Days? I've given up trying to understand. Human biology, Dr. Kethran said. They operate by rules that make no sense to the rest of us. While Subin rested in the medical bay, she told the story of what happened in the cave to anyone who would listen. Her account spread quickly throughout the station, and it only made humans seem more impossible. When the ceiling started falling, I pushed the others into the air pocket, Subin explained to Tae-min when he visited her. Then the rocks started hitting me. Each one hurt, but I stayed conscious. I could hear the others crying, so I started talking to them. For 4 hours? Someone had to keep their spirits up. A couple of them were going into shock just from the fear. I told them stories about Earth to distract them. Tae-min looked at her injuries. Her broken arm was in a cast, but she was using her other arm normally. The cuts on her face were already scabbing over. What kind of stories? About camping in the mountains, hiking through forests full of bears and wolves, swimming in lakes where the water was so cold it could kill you, climbing cliffs where one mistake meant falling to your death. Subin smiled. I thought they were scared because of being trapped, but I think they were more scared of the stories. They kept asking if humans really live like that on purpose. Do we? Don't we? I mean, you went rock climbing last month. Jiho does extreme skiing. Sora goes scuba diving in waters full of sharks. We do dangerous things for fun. Tae-min had never thought about it that way. I guess we do. The alien students had been thinking about it constantly. They gathered in the common area that evening, their research notes spread across multiple tables. The pile of data about human capabilities had grown enormous. They don't just survive impossible injuries, Crixla said, reviewing her notes. They actively seek out dangerous situations for entertainment. Extreme sports, Zephon read from his datapad. Mountain climbing, deep sea diving, jumping out of aircraft for recreational purposes. Their children play games that would injure our adults, Netham added. Wrestling, tackle sports, competitions to see who can endure the most pain. Veltar's crystal body made troubled sounds. What kind of species evolves to find danger enjoyable? A species from a world where danger was constant, Crixla said quietly. If you lived on a planet that was always trying to kill you, maybe. The only way to stay sane would be to learn to enjoy the challenge. Or maybe, Zephon said, they're not actually sane by our standards. This thought hung in the air like a toxic cloud. The aliens looked at each other, processing the implications. Are we sharing a space station with psychopaths? Netham asked. They seem friendly, Veltar said uncertainly. Serial killers often seem friendly, Zephon pointed out. But they've never hurt any of us, Crixla argued. They're helpful, kind, curious about our cultures. Maybe that's how they hunt, Netham suggested, by gaining trust first. Professor Yildoran was having similar thoughts in her office. She had been reviewing security footage of human behavior on the station, looking for signs of aggression or predatory behavior. What she found was more disturbing than violence would have been. The humans were genuinely friendly. They helped other students with homework, shared their food, laughed at alien jokes they probably didn't understand. They showed empathy for species that were completely foreign to them, and they did it all while being living weapons who could probably kill everyone on the station with their bare hands. "Computer," she said, "analyze the physical capabilities of humans compared to other species on the station." Analysis complete. Humans possess greater strength, speed, endurance, and resilience than 97% of station residents. Their reaction times are faster than most predator species. Their immune systems can fight off pathogens that would be fatal to other life forms. Are they dangerous? Potentially extremely dangerous. However, behavioral analysis suggests they have strong inhibitions against violence and high empathy responses to other species' distress. Professor Yildoran stared at the data. So they're built like predators but act like herbivores? That is an accurate summary. How is that possible? Unknown. This combination of traits is unprecedented in galactic biology. That night, Tai Min found Veltar sitting alone in their room, his crystal body making very quiet, sad sounds. "I heard what happened with Subin," Veltar said without looking up. "Rocks that would have crushed any of us, and she stayed conscious for hours, keeping the others calm." "She's tough," Taemin agreed. "Tough." Veltar made a sound like a broken bell. "Is that what you call it when someone survives the impossible?" Taemin sat down across from his roommate. "Veltar, what's really bothering you?" "I've been researching your world," Veltar said. "Do you know what we found when we first detected Earth from space?" "No. We detected radio signals, so we knew there was intelligent life. But when we analyzed the planet itself, we classified it as uninhabitable. We thought the signals must be coming from a space station or colony ship." Veltar's body chimed softly. "When we realized the signals were coming from the planet's surface, we assumed your species must be synthetic. No biological life could survive on a Class 12 death world, but here we are." 1 month after Taemin's first day at Galactic University, Professor Yildoran called an emergency faculty meeting. The conference room was packed with professors from every department, all of them clutching data pads and looking worried. Professor Yildoran floated at the head of the room, her 8 tentacles organizing multiple holographic displays. "Colleagues, we need to discuss the human students." A murmur went through the room. Everyone had heard stories about the humans by now. "I've compiled medical data from all 5 human students currently on our station," Professor Yildoran continued. "The results are unprecedented." She activated the first display. Choi Min-seok, the human in the athletics program. His bone density is 40% higher than any known species. His muscle mass should make movement impossible, yet he moves with perfect coordination. He can lift weights that would crush most of us. How? "Much weight?" asked Professor Kelton from the physics department. "Yesterday, he lifted 400 kilograms during a training exercise, for fun." The room went silent. Professor Yildoran moved to the next display. Han Yu-jin, chemistry student. She regularly handles compounds that would be lethal to any of us. Her liver processes toxins at rates we previously thought impossible. Last week, she accidentally inhaled chlorine gas that should have killed her instantly. "What happened?" asked Dr. Kethran, who was attending the meeting. She coughed for a few minutes and said her throat was scratchy. Then she continued working. Professor Yildoran showed scan after scan. "Park Ji-ho has survived exposure to radiation levels that would sterilize most worlds. Young Subin's injuries from the cave-in are healing so fast that our medical equipment can barely track the changes. Lee Taemin's blood work shows immune responses that could fight off every known pathogen in our database." "What are you saying?" asked Professor Grantai from the psychology department. "I'm saying that these beings shouldn't exist according to everything we know about biology. Yet here they are, living among us, acting like their impossible capabilities are perfectly normal." Dr. Kethran stood up. I've been studying their medical files since they arrived. The data is consistent across all human specimens. They are, by galactic standards, essentially indestructible. Indestructible is a strong word, Professor Kelthans said. Is it? They heal from fatal injuries in days. They survive in environments that would kill us in minutes. They process poisons like they're nutrients. They break bones and continue functioning like nothing happened. Professor Yildiran activated another display showing video footage from around the station. Watch their daily behavior. They engage in activities that would be suicide for any of us. The video showed Han Yu-jin running on the exercise track at speeds that would tear apart most beings' muscle fibers. Choi Min-seok was lifting weights in the gym that the safety systems shouldn't have allowed anyone to access. Park Ji-ho was working on repairs that required him to stick his hands into energy fields that would vaporize normal tissue. They don't even seem to realize how dangerous their actions are, Professor Yildiran said. To them, this is normal behavior. Meanwhile, in the xenobiology lab, Taemin was finally starting to understand why his classmates had been acting so strangely. He was working with Veltar on a tissue analysis project when he accidentally bumped into a cabinet. The cabinet was made of reinforced metal designed to withstand impacts from any known species. When Taemin bumped into it, the cabinet dented. Veltar stared at the dent, then at Taemin, then back at the dent. You just dented reinforced armor plating. I barely touched it, Taemin said, looking at the damage. These cabinets must be really cheap. Taemin, Veltar said very quietly, that cabinet is designed to withstand direct hits from asteroid fragments. Taemin looked at his classmates. They were all staring at him with expressions he was starting to recognize. Mixture of awe and terror. We need to talk, Crixela said. They gathered in the common area after class. All of Taemin's alien classmates were there, along with data pads, research notes, and what looked like a month's worth of careful documentation. Taemin, Zephan began, we've been studying humans since you arrived. Do you want to know what we've learned? I'm not sure I do, Taemin said honestly. You should know, Crixela said, because I don't think you understand what you are. She activated her data pad. Average human can survive in temperatures from 40 to plus 150 degrees Celsius. Most of us die at half those extremes. Humans can go 3 days without water, 30 days without food, Zephan added. We start dying after 6 hours without sustenance. Human immune systems fight off diseases that would extinct our entire species, Netham said, his gaseous form flickering between colors. You're walking biological warfare laboratories that somehow don't kill everything around you. Human bones heal stronger than they were before breaking, Veltar said. Your muscles grow stronger when damaged. You get better by being injured. Taemin looked around at his friends. You've been documenting all of this? We had to, Crixela said, because none of it makes sense. You're impossible beings from an impossible world, and you act like everything about you is perfectly normal. It is normal, Taemin said. For us. But not for anyone else, Zephan squawked. Don't you understand? You're not just different from us. You're so far beyond us that we can barely understand how you exist. Veltar leaned forward, his crystal body making soft, worried sounds. Taemin, what was Earth like? Really like? Taemin thought about how to explain. It was challenging, I guess. There were a lot of things that could hurt you. Wild animals, diseases, natural disasters, poisonous plants. How did you survive? We adapted. We learned to be careful. We built shelters, made medicine, developed technology. No, Crixela said. That's not what we mean. How did your species survive long enough to develop intelligence? Most species that evolve on hostile worlds die out before they can build civilizations. Taemin had never thought about it that way. I don't know. We just did. Because you're virtually indestructible, Netham said. Your species survived because evolution made you tough enough to live through anything. We're not indestructible, aren't you? Veltar asked. When was the last time you were seriously worried about dying? Taemin thought about it. I mean, there was that time I got caught in a thunderstorm while hiking. You survived a thunderstorm? Zephan's feathers stood up. Lightning strikes are instantly fatal to most species. I didn't get hit by lightning, I just got really wet and cold. Cold enough to kill us, Crixala pointed out. Taemin realized he was starting to understand the problem. You're saying that what's normal for humans is lethal for everyone else? Yes. All of his classmates said at once, but that would mean... Taemin paused, working through the implications. That would mean Earth is more dangerous than anywhere else in the galaxy. Much more dangerous, Veltar confirmed. It's classified as a Class 12 death world. The most extreme planets most species can survive on are Class 4. What's the difference? Class 4 worlds might have mild weather variations or non-aggressive wildlife, Zephan explained. Class 12. Worlds have atmospheric toxins, lethal radiation, aggressive predators, unstable geology, extreme weather, and diseases that specifically target intelligent life. Oh, Taemin said quietly. Your entire species evolved in hell, Crixala said, and hell made you into something that can survive anything. You're not just tough for biological beings. You're tough beyond what most of us thought was possible. Taemin looked around at his friends, finally understanding their expressions over the past month. You've been afraid of us. Terrified, Veltar admitted, but also fascinated. You're living proof that the universe is stranger and more dangerous than we ever imagined. We're not dangerous, Taemin said. You could be, Netham said quietly. That's what makes you terrifying. You have the capability to be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but you choose to be kind instead. Why wouldn't we choose to be kind? Because most species with your level of capability would have conquered the galaxy by now, Crixala said. The fact that you didn't, that you're here trying to learn and make friends instead of ruling over us, that's almost as impossible as your biology. Veltar's crystal body made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. I think that's what I find most amazing about humans. You're built like monsters, but you act like angels. We're just people, Taemin said again, but this time it sounded different. He was starting to understand that maybe humans weren't just anything. No, Veltar said softly. You're something much more special than that, and I think the galaxy is going to spend a very long time trying to figure out what to do with you. The final exam for advanced xenobiology was supposed to be a simple survival simulation. Students would be placed in a controlled environment that mimicked various galactic conditions, testing their ability to adapt and survive using their species' natural capabilities. Professor Yildoran had designed the simulation to be challenging but safe. The environmental chambers could create different atmospheric conditions, temperature variations, and mild stress situations. The exam had been used for decades without incident. That changed when the simulation malfunctioned 15 minutes into the test. Instead of mild temperature variations, the chamber began producing extreme cold that approached absolute zero in some areas, while other sections reached temperatures hot enough to melt metal. The atmospheric controls failed, creating pockets of toxic gas mixed with areas of deadly vacuum. Emergency systems that should have activated automatically were completely offline. The alien students panicked immediately. Veltar's crystal body began cracking from the temperature stress. Crixala's exoskeleton couldn't handle the atmospheric changes. Zephan's feathers froze in the cold sections and began burning in the hot zones. Netham's gaseous form started dispersing uncontrollably. But the humans remained calm. Everyone stay together, Taemin called out, his voice carrying clearly through the chaos. We need to find the safest area and wait for rescue. Kim Sora was already checking on the injured alien students. Veltar, Your left arm is cracked. Don't move it. She turned to Crixla. Your breathing sounds labored. We need to get you away from these gas pockets. Park Ji-ho was examining the chamber walls, looking for emergency exits or manual override controls. The main door is sealed, but there might be maintenance access panels. Jung Soo-bin was analyzing the environmental patterns. The temperature. Zones are shifting every few minutes. If we track the pattern, we can predict where the safe areas will be. While the aliens struggled just to survive, the humans organized a rescue operation. Taemin moved through the dangerous zones without protection, his body automatically adapting to the extreme conditions. When he found Zephan trapped in a section, with toxic atmosphere, he simply held his breath and carried the bird-like alien to safety. How are you not dead? Zephan gasped as Taemin set him down in a stable area. I can hold my breath for about 4 minutes, Taemin said. The toxic gas wasn't that concentrated. Sora was performing emergency medical care on multiple species simultaneously. She stabilized Veltar's crystal fractures using techniques. She improvised on the spot, helped Crixla with her breathing problems, and monitored Netham's dispersal rate. How do you know how to treat our species? Veltar asked weakly. I studied xenobiology medical texts, Sora replied while working. Plus, basic first aid principles apply to most biological systems. Ji-ho found the manual overrides for the environmental systems, but they were located in the most dangerous part of the chamber where temperatures fluctuated between deadly extremes every few seconds. I can reach them, he told the group. I just need to time it right. You'll be killed, Crixla protested. I'll be fine. Humans have good temperature tolerance. He waited for the right moment, then sprinted through zones that would have instantly killed any other species. His clothes smoldered and his skin reddened, but he reached the controls and began shutting down the malfunctioning systems. Soo-bin had figured out how to predict the environmental shifts and was guiding everyone to safe zones moments before the conditions changed. Her geological training helped her understand the chamber systems better than anyone else. Next safe zone is Section C7, she called out. We have 30 seconds to get there before the temperature drops to lethal levels. By the time the emergency teams broke through the sealed doors 40 minutes later, they found all the students alive. The aliens were injured and traumatized, but stable. The humans were barely even winded. Dr. Kethron and his medical team rushed in expecting to find casualties. Instead, they found Taemin helping Veltar walk, while Soo-bin carried Zephan and Sora supported Crixla. Ji-ho was still working on the environmental controls to make sure they stayed stable. How? Dr. Kethron stared at the readings from the chamber. The conditions in here should have killed everyone within minutes. The humans protected us, Veltar said, his crystal voice weak but filled with wonder. They walked through zones that would have killed us instantly like they were just uncomfortable. Outside the examination chamber, word spread quickly through the station. The humans hadn't just survived impossible conditions, they had saved everyone else while doing it. Professor Yil Doran arrived at the medical bay as the students were being treated. She looked at her datapad, then at the humans, then back at her datapad. According to my readings, sections of that chamber reached temperatures of minus 200 degrees Celsius and plus 800 degrees Celsius, she said. The atmospheric composition included compounds that are lethal to most known life forms. It wasn't that bad, Ji-ho said. A little uncomfortable, but manageable. Manageable, Professor Yil Doran repeated. You consider temperatures that would freeze or vaporize most beings to be manageable. Well, we had to get everyone to safety, Sora said. You do what you have to do. That evening, Professor Yil Doran stood before the Galactic Council via holographic transmission. Council members from dozens of species listened as she delivered her report. Esteemed council members, she began, I am reporting on the human students currently attending our university. After extensive observation and testing, I have reached conclusions that will impact our understanding of biological capability and our relationship with Earth. She activated her presentation. Humans are not simply another intelligent species. They are the products of evolutionary pressures so extreme that they have developed capabilities we previously thought impossible. The presentation showed medical scans, survival data, and footage from the examination incident. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to any of us. They survive in environments that would kill most species instantly. They possess physical capabilities that exceed our theoretical maximums for biological organisms. Council member Threndal of the Rigelian Commonwealth spoke first. Are you suggesting these humans are a threat to galactic security? No, Professor Yildoran said firmly. I'm suggesting the opposite. Despite having capabilities that could make them the dominant species in the galaxy, they have chosen cooperation over conquest. They come to us seeking knowledge and friendship, not control. But surely beings with such capabilities must have aggressive tendencies, suggested Council Member Vexian. My observations suggest the contrary. Their extreme resilience seems to have made them remarkably patient and empathetic. When faced with danger, their first instinct is to protect others, not themselves. She showed footage from the examination incident. When confronted with a life-threatening situation, they immediately organized to save their classmates. They risked their own lives to protect beings they had known for only a few months. Council member Zarthek leaned forward. What do you recommend? Full integration, Professor Yildoran said without hesitation. Humans represent something unprecedented in galactic history, a species with extraordinary capability coupled with extraordinary restraint. They could teach us as much about cooperation as we could teach them about technology. And if they become aggressive, then we hope we never gave them reason to be. But based on everything I've observed, aggression seems to be the last thing we should worry about from humans. Back on the station, the alien students gathered around their human classmates in the common area. The atmosphere was completely different from a month ago. Instead of fear and suspicion, there was respect and gratitude. I owe you an apology, Veltar said to Taymin. His crystal body made sounds like a beautiful symphony. I was afraid of you because I didn't understand what you were. What am I? Taymin asked. You're a protector, Veltar said. Your species evolved to survive anything, but you use that strength to help others survive too. Crixla nodded, her compound eyes sparkling. I've been documenting human behavior for weeks, and every single observation shows the same pattern. When faced with danger, you protect. When others are hurt, you heal. When problems arise, you solve them. That's just what anyone would do, Sora said. No, Zephan said, his blue feathers rustling. That's what humans do. Most species protect their own kind. You protect everyone. Netham's gaseous form glowed with warm colors. I think Professor Yildoran was right in her report to the Council. You're not just survivors. You're the best of us, even though you're not originally from us. What report? Taymin asked. She recommended full human integration into galactic society, Veltar explained. She told the Council that humans are exactly what the galaxy needs. Why? Because you're proof that being strong doesn't mean being cruel, Crixla said. You're the toughest beings we've ever encountered, but also the kindest. A few days later, Taymin received a video call from his family on Earth. His parents and younger sister appeared on the screen, eager to hear about his experiences at the university. How are your studies going? His mother asked. Are you making friends? Taymin looked around his dorm room, where Veltar was working on homework while making soft, happy musical sounds.